Romans 1 verse 17, let me remind you of one of the core central scriptures that we have discussed in previous weeks. This is now our 13th week in Romans, and we are coming into some awesome stuff that Paul is unfolding as we head into chapter 4. And man, this book is about to explode, and it's about to just change your world. We are leading from last week where we said we have all fallen short. We're all on the same playing field tonight. Even though the Blues lost last week, they're on the same playing field with the Maroons. They can win, I believe. They are justified to win tonight through the power of Jesus Christ, through that leather ball and their short shorts and their horrible behavior. But that's a bad example. But Romans 1 verse 17 says this: "For in the gospel, a righteousness from God is revealed." Everyone say, "is revealed." So we talked about that, and we talked about how we are only righteous by faith. We are only justified by faith and faith alone. And so Paul, at the beginning of chapter 1, unfolds his thesis, his whole heart, his gospel, his understanding of Christ. And scholars believe that Paul actually got downloaded from Christ in those 3 days where he's blinded. You can read about it in Acts chapter 9, where he was blinded. He had an encounter, and he talks about it in some of his other letters. In those 3 days, he saw Christ, and everything was revealed to him, and he understood now that he could not be saved by being a Jew and following the law, that he was only saved by grace through Jesus Christ. A very impacting vision, wouldn't you say, where Jesus encounters you and changes your life forever. So all that you can see is him and his grace. And so we see here that the gospel that we are talking about is not a gospel of our good deeds. It's not a gospel of our success. It's not a gospel of what we can achieve for the kingdom. It's not a gospel of us trying to prove that, hey, if we achieve this and this, and if we fulfill this in our job or this, that would, any of that stuff will save us. No. That may be a result of a life lived by faith and a life walked by faith, but it can never be a life that will actually save you. The only thing that can save you is a righteousness that comes from God. He is the only one that is righteous. And so we talked about that last week. And so then we lead into Romans 3 verse 27. And so he says here, "Where then is boasting? It is excluded." What is he saying there? He's basically saying that no one has the right to boast about their salvation. No one can boast about even having life or even having breath, because all of it comes from God. Everything we have, all of our finances, everything we own, our relationships, everything is given to us by God. That thought alone could radically change your life tonight, because I believe we approach God from all the wrong angles. We kind of approach God as if it's ours, but nothing is ours. All of it is God, and all of life is a gift from God. And so if you have that kind of revelation and that kind of understanding, everything begins to change, because every conversation, whether it's good, bad, or ugly, even sickness, everything God is working through in order for his purposes and his glory to be revealed in your life. But what we do is we think, oh, this is mine, and so we either complain or we either boast. So if it's really bad, it's God's fault, and we start complaining. But if everything's really good, we take credit for it. And God's like, what's going on? So he gives you another bad problem, and he works through that. He works through those situations. You just look at the book of Job. God allowed Job to be tested by the enemy, and he uses that to reveal the faithfulness that he has placed in our heart. It's amazing. I'd like it to be another way. I'd like it to be all perfect and just be roses and fluffy clouds right now, but it's not. It's gritty. There's tears, there's pain, there's brokenness. We live in a city with lots of addiction and real problems. So how can people reconcile a gospel that doesn't bring any suffering or understanding of the brokenness of us? How can we live out our faith if it's only, if it's God's fault, all that stuff, and then it's like when everything's good, wow, we're the hero. We can't live in that kind of relationship with God. It's all him, and he's working through it all. All of a sudden there's freedom because There's peace in all of it because your focus and your eyes are on God. And so we're going to unfold these passages here. So there is no boasting. It is excluded. On what principle? So he says, well, on what basis can I say that? On that of observing the law, that no one has fulfilled the law. And the law was there to prove that we were all unrighteous. And that's why the law was brought into effect, to help us understand that God is the only justifier of all those that are justified. So the law is there. You know, I like the law not to be there and just we all have a great time. But the law is there to show us how amazing God is and how unfulfilling we are of that law. And so therefore, God becomes the reconciler between that gap and brings us back together to him through his righteousness, not our own. No. Everyone say no. So it's not observing the law. You can't fulfill it. No, it's but of that faith. It's faith alone. It is Romans 1 verse 17 coming into effect. He's brought his antithesis or his antithesis through Romans chapter 2. He tricked the Jews in the end of chapter 1 and they're all cheering. And then he nailed the Jews and the Gentiles are all cheering. And then he brings it back and then he just tears them both to shreds and says, you're both on the same playing field. Drop your issues of unity. Everyone, drop your issues. You're all on the same level. We are all unrighteous. We all need this. It's only by faith. For we maintain that a man is justified by faith apart from observing the law. So, is God the God of Jews only? Is he not the God of Gentiles too? This is a powerful statement by Paul because the Jews believed that there was only one God, one true God. Yet they were being so exclusive, they were not letting the Gentiles in to serve that one God. And so here he's just torn down all their preconceptions of what's going on and said, if you're saying there's only one true God, surely he has to be the God of all people. We have to embrace all people and not be exclusive about this grace and this gospel that we've received. So they were trying to be exclusive and say, yeah, he's our God, but then not allow the Gentiles to also receive relationship with this God. Yes, of Gentiles too, since there is only one God who will justify the circumcised by faith and the uncircumcised, speaking of Jews and Gentiles, through that same faith. They are both justified. They are both made right. We are all made right tonight by the same thing, the faithfulness of Jesus Christ towards us and us believing in his faithfulness through the cross. That is the only way we can live life. There is no other way. There is no other way. You can't just sometimes live this way and then, no, this is our life every single day, living by faith. We are saved by the faithfulness of Jesus Christ towards us.